I know it's been a minute. I do apologize. I started back at another hospital just this past weekend, and I was wrapping up my orientation. On top of that, I think, like I said in my last video, that I was working on my own private home care, which I started back in 17. Got a little knocked off balance due to COVID, but for 2021, like I said, I was jumping back in. So I've been a bit tired. I wanted to put this video out a little bit earlier, but I did 312s over the weekend. I was kind of beat, so I'm getting this out today. In terms of the portfolio, too much hasn't happened. Really haven't seen much movement. Particularly most of these companies that I'm in are dividend plays, and so the overwhelming amount of money that I'm going to generate from this account is basically going to be in the way of recurring dividends. Now, at least so far for the month, you can see I am still up a little over almost 700. So far, we've clocked in 200, almost 250 in dividends, and you can see my all account. I did sell some of my plays. I basically locked in some of those profits just because I think that the market at some point is going to have a harsh correction, and I want to have a little bit of money on the side. And of course, now I had a little bit of an issue with my previous hospital where they paid out a lump sum of money that they owed to me. They owed me about 22 grand and had gotten paid, and then something had happened and then they had retracted the funds, and I had sent some of my other funds to my long-term account. That put me in a little bit of a financial bind, as a lot of my money is basically already invested. I have a small account with what's it called, with Acorns, which is basically like my pseudo savings account, because you don't get anything putting money in the bank. And so about 2 years ago, I put about 20,000 into my Acorns account. I'm up about 15% in that little portfolio. It's a conservative. I left it on generally conservative for that portfolio, and of course, I have some money invested here, as well as put a little bit of money into my retirement account. So that kind of hurt me in terms of the income, and then I'm like leaving most of my money that I'm making for the business and not really adding it yet. So with the new hospital, because I'm doing some travel nursing now, one, of course, it does pay better because of what's going on with the pandemic, but two, it'll give me a little bit more recurring. Like I said, multiple videos, my goal, of course, is to move abroad. So it gave me the opportunity to work on the weekends and then focus during the week, obviously on trading. I do trading through Webull, as well as, of course, buying in my M1, which is basically like my income. So just looking over here, so of course, about every month I kind of tally up where I'm at. My goal, of course, still for the year is to hit that 500. Currently, we're a little lower because I sold quite a few positions that I found I had taken profits in. Some of those were, for example, look over here. So gain, as you can see, I did take profits. You can see right here, I had about looks like we had about 10,000 in gain overall, and basically took some profits in this particular. So actually, excuse me, this was about in all of my finance was about 10,000. So we pulled out about 4,000 or so. So some of that were in stocks, for example, like Main and Gain, which are the monthly dividends. And these are BDCs. They're very overextended, as you can see. There's a lot of overextension, especially in the current climate with inflation and basically the government just printing money. I felt it better to start taking profits in certain positions, like, for example, Gain, Main. I took some profits in Store. Took a little bit of profit in a bunch of other plays, and I added a little bit to Nusi, which is kind of like a hedge to the downside, very similar to Jeppy. So I added just a little bit. I'm probably going to add a little bit more and round both of these out to about 1,500. So I basically took half profits in both Main and Gain, and then leaving a little bit, of course, for the long haul. Let's see what else. In terms of the risk, I believe I did come obviously out of JetBlue. I had cleared out of Baba before the freaking thing popped tall, but it is what it is. Still holding Kroger, as I believe Kroger will move up. X, we've seen a little bit of a move to the downside. Not too bad. I've only got about 1,000 in there, so I'm not too worried. In terms of Wells Fargo, I am waiting for the news on, I believe earnings are coming out. So we've been holding above 40. Today we had a little bit of a sell-off. So I'm going to wait and see how that works out. I still have 40 of Wells Fargo in the Weeble, and in my long-term account I did sell. I had a couple of sells today. I did take profits in my long-term. This is basically my small retirement account. This account got butchered when the market went down. I was down, I think we were down to about 12.7 in terms of the account value, and I had only had about 18,000 at the time. I believe it was about 18,000 or a little under 18,000. So the account took a huge dip. We were able to build it back over the last year or so. So I took some profits in Wells Fargo, ExxonMobil, ORI, Store, and Enbridge. And you can see my current outstanding right here. I've got about 3,000 in profits outstanding. We'll see what I'm going to do moving forward, but this is another smaller account that I do manage. I did very similarly. Just going to touch real quick on my other Roth. So I have two different ones that was just I kind of liked M1. And then one of the things I don't like about M1 is like sometimes I want to take profits during the daytime, or I want to take profits at a specific price or buy at a specific price. And I can't do that with M1. It doesn't allow you to do that. Basically markets you in at about 9:40, 9:45 is when you get filled. Or if you sell during the secondary window, which is around 3 o'clock, you usually get filled anywhere about 3:15 or something like that, or 3:10. The only sell in this particular account that I had was I sold a little bit of Square, and I sold out of Prudential, and that was just because Square is just like literally up in the air. Had a huge move to the upside of about 38%, almost 40%, and basically just locking in profits in case we see a bit of a harsh correction, which is what I've been doing. In terms of my overall accounts, I'm probably at least going to be holding most of these. Blue chips I think will be fine. I don't think we're going to see a huge correction in blue chips by comparison to more speculative plays, like if you're in SPACs, etc. Maybe the banks will have a harsher pullback. Finance might have a harsher pullback. In terms of my risk, Apple I think will do fine. Southern, which should do fine. Abivai, a little bit of a speculative play I might take out, but I'm not really up all that much. Square, as you can see, how much I'm up in just in this one position. I might do like a half position in Abivai and just leave that money here as a cash balance. And if we do see a hard pullback in the Dow, if we do see a hard pullback to, like, let's say if we get a correction to the moving average, then I'll redeploy those funds for a little bit of a bounce to the upside. That's basically what I've been doing over the past couple of days. Still basically holding all of my food stocks between Kroger. I bought Kroger down here at around 36. Still holding on to companies like we've seen a move to the upside, for example, in Kraft. Waiting for a little bit of a pop tall above 41s. Very similar to stocks like Tyson. We're seeing still fairly range bound. Perhaps the market is waiting for earnings, or the market is, of course, basically we saw a little bit of a pullback because of the rhetoric that inflation is under control, which inflation is not under control. And so we saw a little bit of a pullback, which is why you see things like you saw a little bit of a pullback right here in the 10-year treasury coming right down to the support. And the treasury, the feds are just basically buying all the bonds. It's like no one's out here buying bonds, which is why we're seeing a bit of a pullback. And of course, we're seeing a little bit of a rise in the NASDAQ and a little bit of a pullback in the Dow. But I still believe that we're going to see inflation to the upside. I still believe that the 10-year is going to trade higher to about that 2%. There's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of noise going on out there, but I'm still holding on to primarily food stocks. I've been reading a lot of articles in multiple countries where there's food shortages. For example, you can look it up in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has, I think it was 800 million locusts, and they basically been devouring the grain. Very similarly in Australia. Australia also had a very similar incident, but with mice in relation to the wheat. They've lost quite a bit of wheat. We've seen also, because of what happened in Texas with the winter storm, a lot of wheat and grain was destroyed. Not only that, we're also seeing what's going on in Florida, where there was some tampering and polluting of the water table, and so they're having some issues with their drinkable water. And it's not just in it's in quite a few different countries. I believe North Korea recently, there was an article that I read where the president of North Korea also said very similarly for the inhabitants to be prepared for a famine. And it's also in places like in Africa. So you can just Google food shortages, food scarcity 2021, and you'll see that there are numerous articles talking about food scarcity rising. Many people falling below the poverty line, and not enough available food, obviously not enough available work, which in my opinion, there's a lot of manipulation going on, which is why I've been invested in food stocks. Like, for example, like KO, we've seen KO move to the upside, Kellogg as well move to the upside, General Mills moving to the upside. We're seeing a little bit of a pullback. Also, companies like Tyson, if you're looking for chicken, as well as Kraft. So a lot of these companies are basically the ones that I'm holding. This video is way too long. I'm gonna cut it right here. Hopefully the week goes well. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.